Sonic, formerly known as Fantom, is flying. And I think that this could be a little bit of kind of a wider indicator of maybe what could be to come in the like kind of wider altcoin market. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today, as well as kind of the specifics of what Sonic is about, what kind of change, like, you know, did when it went from Fantom to Sonic, did anything change fundamentally? Why would they do something like this? A lot of that type of stuff. Believe it or not, this is not particularly uncommon for crypto projects to do things like this. So I want to talk a little bit about that as well, and maybe what the strategy could have been here. And then also, you know, maybe some price predictions of what we could see potentially kind of running further on into this hopeful potential alt season. So again, you know, we'll have to see for sure. Again, you know, nothing I say in here is financial advice. We're just going to be talking about kind of what is going on with the Fantom or the Sonic coin, what this could mean, a lot of that type of stuff. So anyway, let's go ahead. We'll dive right in. Starting out, I want to just get straight into CoinGecko so we can talk about some of the kind of really important things here. So the first one that I would say is very important is we can see that there is no max supply. So let's just get started right on in, and we'll jump right into CoinGecko. We can see here we've got the Sonic kind of overall profile pulled up. The reason I like to use CoinGecko is to kind of get a general high level of what we're looking at here. And what we can see most importantly is that there is no max to Sonic's total supply. So there is a potentially unlimited amount of supply from Sonic, which again is not necessarily a bad thing. We'll get a little bit into the tokenomics here in a second, just so we can see, you know, and kind of get some context on, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? You know, whatever. But at least as of right now, the market cap is about 2.7 billion. This is the 50th largest crypto within the crypto space. If we look at the market cap and we look over the max period of time, we can see, you know, kind of sitting near all-time highs. You know, we did actually see a pretty strong pullback of almost over 50% here. You know, and then we've kind of seen a really, really nice run to the upside over this like period of time. I think is about a 70 or 80% run to the upside. So actually here in 14 days, 104%, 30 days, 37%, and 7 days, almost up 60% just this week, which is pretty impressive. So I guess first things first, let's talk about kind of why Fantom may have moved to Sonic. This is something that is not uncommon. This is something that's not new. This is not, you know, scammy. This isn't anything. Crypto projects do this a lot. Matic, maybe you guys have heard of that one. Polygon, they just moved from Matic to Pol. They did that. There was one that did this last cycle. I can't remember exactly, but this happens all the time. I guess the point being is this is not an uncommon thing at all. I think a lot of the reason here is because it's one of those things that, you know, maybe it isn't for the best reason, but it's kind of proven that whenever you kind of see this sort of rebrand moving from, you know, Fantom to Sonic, a lot of people who maybe this is their first cycle, they kind of think that this is a new coin, right? They're like, oh, wow, Sonic, I've never heard of that before. Even if it's their second cycle, but they're super retail and they don't really pay a whole bunch of attention. You know, obviously you could see it's previously Fantom. These guys are actually being, you know, I would say pretty straightforward about the fact that they kind of were a previous one and now they're a new one. But a lot of times, you know, even if people are kind of super retail or even from the last cycle, maybe they had Fantom and they got burned on it. Also, you can see it's a new chart. This chart is just about 6 weeks old, so you can't see some of the previous carnage that there was to see from the, you know, the 2021 2022 collapse, bear market, all of that type of stuff. And so this is a little bit strategic at a certain point in time, so something to consider there. Again, not necessarily a bad thing, but just something to think about. Again, usually with this type of rebrand, it gives them a chance to kind of represent who they are, what they're doing, a lot of that type of stuff, just so you can see. You don't have to, you know, it gives them essentially a chance to just kind of have a new, fresh look. And historically, you know, if we're being pragmatic about it, historically, when things like this happen, it's very, very beneficial for the company that rebrands. As we can see, 100% in 14 days. Looking at the chart here, I mean, this is very much, obviously, you know, it's doing well for them, at least so far. So we'll have to see kind of how this continues along. If we do look at crypto bubbles, though, I want to kind of go into a larger, kind of bigger picture thing that we are seeing here. Now, obviously, you know, we're seeing, you know, Maker, Virtual, some of these like Solana apps and things like that doing quite well. But what we are seeing is we're seeing a lot of these layer ones do really quite well. So we're seeing, obviously, you know, Barachain is one that came out recently. That one's been pumping quite well. Near's been moving up pretty nice. nicely. We're seeing Say over here. Say's been off on a decent run over the past couple of days, just due to some of the news that we've seen there. We've got Sonic here. We've got Sui. The layer ones are really kind of moving fairly nicely. This has been a pretty strong move. I think even like Move is, we got Move, we got AVAX, we got some of these others that are doing quite well. And so what I think this could be indicating from kind of this initial Sonic move that's leading the way is there might be this kind of general transition to people kind of speculating on what could be like the top layer one. Like we've kind of already established like the S tier layer ones, right? I mean, that's probably Ethereum and Solana. Maybe we could throw BNB in there potentially, but then after that, it's like, okay, well, what are the A tiers? Obviously, Sui's done very much quite well so far. Near has kind of been a long time player. Barachain's coming off a fairly hyped airdrop and like launch of their chain, so that one's been pretty good. We can see that Say has seen a decent bit of some hype recently from some of the buys going on there. Sonic obviously has done fairly well with the relaunch. So there's a lot of jostling and jockeying as to what the kind of next super hyped layer one could be. And so I think that's kind of why we're starting to see some pumps kind of throughout the market on some of these. And so this is kind of maybe that kind of rotation that we could be expecting to see here. Also, now if we go and just kind of take a look at the Sonic website, we can see here, there's points are live. They're doing an airdrop. Again, I think that's another reason why people are doing, or this is such a hyped project and there's so much buying pressure on it, is because there is an airdrop. People love airdrops. I have noticed that historically, at least over the past probably 6 to 9 months, airdrops have been pretty bad. They usually haven't resulted in too much. There was a pretty decent one with Magic Eden, but when it launched, it was kind of a poor timing in the market, and so people made a lot of money, but the price didn't hold very well. So I would say recently airdrops have been a little bit rough, but we can see, it's an EVM layer one, speed, incentives, world-class infrastructure. The incentives is one thing that I really kind of want to focus on. I think we're seeing a lot of that. Oh, that's kind of neat. If you click it, it does some little animation. That's cool. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Moving on. But what we can see is this is the incentive that they are talking about, and that I think is actually really quite cool. So the app builders actually collect 90% of the revenue that is earned by the chain, which is interesting because that's not particularly great for Sonic, but it's very, very good for the apps. And the reason why I think that this is important is because, again, you're trying to incentivize people building on your chain. If you're earning all of the fees that otherwise would be staying with the layer ones, think about like Solana or Ethereum, things like that, this might be a really good reason for you to be involved with this. And this is kind of like it kind of brings in like more Web 2 type of stuff, right? I mean, if you think about Web 2, the developers actually pay to host their app, and then they need to find ways to monetize it, right? And in this case, the fees that users are paying to interact with your app go to the creator of the app, and that's how they essentially kind of monetize their product, whatever that might be. I still think this is a little bit inferior to ICP's method that they have, where they've got the reverse gas model and they've got the actual project creator kind of paying for the gas fees. I think the reason why is because you still have kind of the user interface like obstruction of having to pay for things and sign transactions and do all this type of stuff while you're actually like still on chain. So from like a Web3 perspective, I think this is actually probably a really great leap, but it's not maybe necessarily the leap that we would want to see to like onboard Web2 type of people. I think ICP still probably has the better, the kind of the better system there. But again, with that, that's kind of more of like the traditional true internet model, because now the app builders are going to probably need to do advertising or things like that. Very similar to how websites currently do. Maybe put it behind a paywall, subscription fees, things like that, to kind of monetize their site in a way so that they can pay for that reverse gas model. So kind of some comparing and some contrasting there. We can also see sub-second confirmation times. So, less than 1 second, 10,000 transactions per second, and less than a penny average transaction cost. This is all good stuff. Again, 10,000 transactions per second is not even close to internet level speed, but it's very, very good, and it's a lot better than what we have currently within kind of the ecosystem. So I think this is, again, another good step in the right direction, but maybe not 100% of what we need to be seeing. So if we look at the tokenomics, we'll kind of end it off here before we start looking in some price predictions and whatnot. But we can see here at Sonic's launch, the total supply is 3.175 billion, which we did see on CoinGecko, excuse me. As decided by multiple governance proposals, the additions below will gradually be implemented into the tokenomics of the S token. So airdrop, an additional 6% of the 3.175 billion S will be minted 6 months after Sonic launches, exclusively used for the airdrop program, rewarding both Phantom, Opera, and Sonic users and builders. The airdrop features an innovative burn mechanism that rewards active participation and gradually reduces the total supply of S tokens. So again, they're trying to keep some of this inflationary mechanics under control. As we can see, the supply is uncapped, so this could theoretically inflate into infinity, but they're trying to have some of those kind of, the burn mechanisms to keep the kind of supply and demand and the inflation and the deflation kind of somewhat in check. This kind of seems to be the thing that's kind of coming in vogue, right? I mean, Ethereum, I would say, probably kind of started this. ICP has a similar mechanism. Sonic has now a similar mechanism. There's a lot of other chains that have been trying to introduce like burn mechanics, not necessarily from like a keeping inflation under control, but more of like a deflationary perspective. I don't necessarily love the deflationary thing. It incentivizes people to not use your ecosystem realistically at its core. That's kind of why most world governments don't use deflationary mechanics, is because you essentially your money becomes more valuable you just holding it. So why would you spend it if you could just hold it and it becomes more valuable? But then you have the game theory of, well, if everybody holds it and it becomes valuable for everybody, but nobody spends it, then nothing deflates, and it's one of those things where it just doesn't really make sense when you kind of take into account game theory and a lot of that type of stuff. So what we're seeing though with Ethereum and Sonic and some of these is there's kind of that supply and demand, and you kind of have that fluctuating inflation deflation mechanics. But the core, I would say, intention is probably to keep things kind of net neutral, maybe even minor inflationary. If it goes deflationary, it's not that big of a deal, because over a long enough period of time, it's probably going to stay inflationary. Now, if we go back here, what we can see is ongoing funding. We can see an additional 1.5% will be minted annually for 6 years. So they're essentially looking for like a 1.5% inflation rate. You can see, however, to guard against inflation, the network will burn newly minted token not used during the year, ensuring that 100% of all newly minted token from this initiative are allocated toward network growth rather than being held by the treasury for later use. So a pretty interesting mechanic there. Again, this is very, very minor inflation. So, we'll have to see kind of what goes on. But I guess that's just the funding piece. We can see here, you also have the block rewards to achieve a 3.5% APR for Sonic without causing further inflation, reallocating the remaining Phantom block rewards to Sonic, technically part of the initial supply. But the circulating supply will be 2.88 billion. The initial will be validator rewards. So again, they're after that period, S block rewards will resume by minting new tokens at a rate of 1.75% per year to reward validators. So again, at launch, you're going to be seeing about potentially up to a max of about 3.25% when we're looking kind of this piece and this piece. But then eventually after the 6 years, this will go away. So there is going to be consistent inflationary pressure on the ecosystem. But again, in my opinion, this is not a bad thing at all. I think this is good to incentivize people to actually use it, because holding it forever is not necessarily the best thing. When you obviously want stores of value. Stores of value are a good thing to have, but you don't necessarily want that to be your kind of main currency of exchange, because that you should incentivize people to be spending and using. And then obviously, they can kind of trade in and out of stores of value, based on when they need to use that type of currency. So this is actually the first type of tokenomics that I've seen that I think is pretty decent. I like where it's at. I think the inflation rate is reasonable. I think the the burn mechanics, all that type of stuff is interesting. We can see here you got various burn mechanics as well. So there is the possibility of going deflationary, but again, I would say that that's probably not the that's probably not the expectation realistically. So anyway, just something to think about there. I also do have several trading links in the description below if you are interested. I've got one for BTCC. I also do use WEEX, and then I have recently started promoting Phemex as well. So this is one that you can see I've got a couple of trades open here, just kind of trying it out. One of the things that I really like here is they've got a trading bot where you can do futures grid or martingales, a lot of that type of stuff. I'm probably going to set one of those up here fairly soon just to show you guys how it works. I've been actually using a trading bot on a different platform for probably the past 6 or 8 months. It's done really well. I've been very happy with it. But I was paying like, I think $100 a month to do it. And so when I saw that these guys had it for free, I was super thrilled, very interested in kind of checking that out further. So like I said, I got those in the description below if you are interested. But overall, let's go back and we'll take a look at some phantom price predictions here, because what I want to talk about is, what could we see out of phantom potentially? So again, we're at 2.7 billion, a pretty strong market cap, I would say, for a layer one. Not super high, of course, but also not super low either. So, I think probably a reasonable target for Sonic. Again, we'll go and kind of take a look at the overall crypto market. This cycle, I feel like probably a reasonable kind of goal for Sonic would be kind of at the SUI level. So maybe, the 10 to 13 billion range. Obviously, SUI's kind of come down a little bit, but I think it was peaking at kind of the 13 to 14 billion range. So I think that's probably fairly reasonable. That would indicate anywhere between about a 4 to 6x potentially out of Sonic, which is not terrible. Obviously, it's not maybe some of the 100x returns you're hoping for, but on a chain like that, I think that's probably a pretty reasonable return, and it seems fairly doable, right? I mean, if it continues to kind of catch the narrative, it continues to see that sustained buying pressure, a lot of that type of stuff that it's seen at least so far, I do think maybe a move up to SUI heights are possible. Again, I'm not going to say it's likely, but it's possible. Maybe more like max bullish. Maybe we see something at like a Cardano level, which would be about a 10x. I mean, maybe you could make the argument it gets to Solana level. I just don't see that. I think there's too many bridges to cross in a very short period of time for us to see something kind of at this level. So to me, I think kind of realistically, maybe SUI, maybe stretch cases closer to Cardano. And then we could see, maybe it comes even at like a hyper liquid level where we're seeing about an 8.3 billion. Again, this would be roughly about a 3x from where we're at currently. So anywhere from like a 3x to 10x maybe I think is possible. That to me kind of contextualized within the rest of the crypto ecosystem probably seems to be the most reliable. So that's kind of what I've been looking at, what I've been seeing within the crypto market. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Hopefully you did find the information in this video useful. Again, I am very pleasantly surprised or pleased with what we've been seeing out of the tokenomics for Sonic. So I will be watching it closely. We'll see kind of how it goes. If you have any comments, questions, thoughts, I'd love to hear what you guys' opinions are on Sonic. Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Are you cynical about the whole, rebrand thing? Do you like it? What are your thoughts there? I'd love to hear it. So just drop those in the comment section below. I do try to read and respond to all of those. So if you have anything you want me to see there, that'd be a really great way to do it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.